one touch all. Africans unite. Go check.
Hey yo, keep a black eye on Jake, cause Jake got an eye on you. Plus my whole crew, slave catchers in the hood, kidnapping niggas.
Organizing this caucus, I think is extremely important for a number of reasons. I'm the chairman of the African People Socialist Party, but I am also the leader of an organization called a coalition, Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. And this coalition came into existence essentially for the same reason that I think you've come into existence. And that is because the traditional peace movement, or anti-war movement, or anti-imperialist movement, we felt did an extremely poor job of defining the questions of war and peace and what kind of stances people should take. For example, most of the wars that we've been talking about, going back for all of the history of this country, have been wars against people who've been looted and victimized, who've been enslaved and colonized and what have you. So we say it's not enough to say peace, but what side do you stand on? And it's necessary to say that victory to the oppressed peoples. It's not enough to say peace with Vietnam, but you've got to be on the side of the oppressed, be on the side of the Vietnamese. It's not enough to say peace in Iraq, where you have a situation where Wall Street through its armies are looting Iraq and the entire Middle East and Persian Gulf. So we felt it was absolutely necessary to pull together an organization of African people who could intervene in this discussion, so that we want to make sure that we were not talking about peace on the plantation. You know, because George Bush wanted peace. He just wanted the people to stop fighting back. As long as the people are not fighting back, that's peace. So we said that it was really necessary for us to try to intervene in this discussion and not allow this discussion to be monopolized by people who, even in the name of peace, were actually involved in trying to preserve or rescue imperialism from the crisis that it is involved in right now. And of course, imperialism is experiencing severe crisis, but the crisis didn't start just now. If you talk about even the question of Wall Street, you know that Wall Street was built by enslaved African people, right? And you know that Wall Street was created as this wall that was going to protect the people who were stealing Indian lands from the very Indians themselves. So that was a movement against Wall Street. And when you look at what's happening, how this whole economy came into existence, I'm not just talking about U.S. economy, I'm talking about the world economy, how it came into existence. It came into existence of slavery and colonialism. That is to say, the various European powers at different times becoming empires that controlled the world. Up until 1945, England, this tiny rock, controlled 25% of the world's population and 25% of the land area of the world. This is how England grew. And it was a part of an economy that, you know, that brought Europeans to this place right here. But now we're talking about concentration camps where that they euphemistically refer to as reservations, where the traditional, you know, owners of this land are locked up now. They don't even get talked about. But the struggle against Wall Street started many years ago, and it started by people like ourselves and people like the indigenous people who are oppressed here and other peoples around the world who in many instances are responsible for the population of California looking like what it looks. I mean, even when you go back to 1848, which is the period that the theft of Mexican land was codified, right? You know, because that was the war that stole California, stole Texas, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, etc. That was a Wall Street war. That was a Wall Street war that created various amounts of wealth. And even as we talk about today, where people are saluting Steve Jobs for being this visionary, all of this, etc., makes it possible everybody have an iPhone, who can afford one, or iPad, etc. But the reality is that that came as a price. Steve Jobs might be wonderful, but don't ask the people in Congo whose coltan is being ripped off, where since 1998, perhaps 7 million people have been killed in order to give Steve Jobs something to work with. That he can be a visionary at the expense of the freedom and resources that's come from various other people. So that's how we understand this whole question. We don't want to be involved in a takeover of Occupy Wall Street if it simply means replacing the ones who control Wall Street with somebody else. We say that we want to overthrow Wall Street. We were talking about a movement that would actually be involved in overturning a social system that's built on slavery and built on colonialism and genocide. This whole social system has to go, and Wall Street is simply one expression of this social system. When you look at the mayor of Oakland, that's a Wall Street mayor. When you look at armies killing people in Iraq, those are Wall Street armies. When you look at the threat that's being made against Hugo Chavez in Venezuela because they're taking back their resources, that's a Wall Street threat. And the same thing is true about the conditions of Africans and indigenous people right here in this country. That's Wall Street police that's saying now they have gang, so-called, what do they call it, gang initiative. Those are Wall Street initiatives. That's designed to try to protect the corporations and the interests of Wall Street as opposed to the interests of the various people who are oppressed. Because we live in a country now where just a few years ago, America was recognized as a place that used police dogs, water hoses, electric prods, and various kinds of brutality to suppress the African masses. Now we live in a place where we want to pretend that the young African male is the threat to civilization and stability, and that's obviously nonsense. So I'm just saying that I think this is important what you are doing. Because actually the Africans and the indigenous peoples here have been leading this struggle for a long time. When I see Occupy Wall Street, I want to say welcome to the struggle. That's what I want to say, but it actually has to be somebody who is entering into the struggle and not trying to salvage the ability to go to the mall in safety and to have iPods and the rest of that, but to participate in the struggle that the whole world is involved in now. And the fact is, we're talking about a crisis, economic crisis in this country, is because it's a parasitic economy. It's a parasitic economy. It's a parasitic economy that has brought wealth to America, to Europe, at the expense of oppressed peoples around the world. We're talking about an economic crisis that makes the question of the ability of Wall Street to not only be profitable, also people who used to be comfortable. The reason they can't be comfortable anymore is because people in Iraq are saying we want our oil for our own use. And the people around South America are saying we want our resources for our own. There are no banana republics anymore. People are rising up everywhere, and that's why the economic crisis has struck Europe, has struck North America and most of the world. Because there's a shift now that the oppressed peoples are taking back our resources, that a parasitic economy, a parasitic social system has no place to turn, and so it's turning inward to some extent. And so people are feeling the squeeze now, and they don't have the security of a 401k, is that what it's called? The 401k that they used to be able to experience. They don't have the security of being able to go to shopping malls where they can buy cheaply stolen resources that's come from Mexico or come from other places where there's slave wages. And so many of the people here are motivated by the fact that they can't get what they used to be able to get as a consequence of colonial conquest, imperial conquest. That's why it's so important that we are here, because our objective has to be to overturn this relationship that America and Europe has with the oppressed peoples of the world. So that's my intervention, you know, and I think it's extremely important because you are joining now people all over the world. And I'm not talking about the Occupy Wall Street people. I'm talking about people who are resisting in Iraq, Venezuela, in Cuba, Bolivia, people who are, how many thousands of people rose up just in August in England, all those young African people rising up to fight back. People around the world are fighting against a social system, and they're not fighting for the privilege to go to the mall. They're fighting to take back our lives because we live in a world where half the people exist or try to exist off $2.50 US cents a day, where people in Africa spend all day just trying to earn enough to live for that day. That's Wall Street poverty. And people have been fighting that for years, and now the table is turned, and the crisis of imperialism is being experienced more and more by people inside this country. Well, we want to overturn imperialism, not just have Wall Street be able to give us what it used to give us, quote unquote. The system has got to go because it's a parasitic social system that requires the vast majority of the people on earth to be deprived and oppressed in Africa. The richest continent on earth in terms of natural resources, 12 million square miles of richness, where people in Sierra Leone dig up diamonds, some of the best diamonds in the world. They earn for doing that something like 32 cents and a cup of rice a day doing that. We're talking about Steve Jobs and computers, well, and cell phones. Well, the fact is in Congo, the coltan, that's the mineral that's necessary for cell phones and computers, 87% of that is in Congo. But the people in Congo didn't reap the rewards that Steve Jobs got. Nobody's memorializing them. Instead, they're victims of proxy wars by Wall Street. Proxy wars that's resulted in some 7 million people dying since 1998. And they are starving as a consequence of that. So, only thing I'm saying is let's make a struggle against this social system. Barack Obama is a Wall Street president.
That's right.
And your congressperson is a Wall Street congressperson. It's a whole rotten social system. And who represents it, something is wrong with them if they're willing to represent imperialism. And so, like I just saw something on TV today, they're showing this thing that Al Sharpton is doing some kind of march for jobs, etc. I would remind everybody that under slavery, there was full employment, right? So the question is not just to have a job, right? The question is to have a decent life, to have resources, and have control over our own resources. But the thing that struck me is because Sharpton, Obama, Nutter, who's a mayor of Philadelphia, who is a neo-colonial puppet mayor, just like Obama is a neo-colonial puppet president working for Wall Street. These people came out saluting the Occupy Wall Street movement. They say they are defining this as a movement against the Republicans, you see? And they are trying to move this to energize people to put this Negro back in power, who Wall Street gave more money to in his first election than it did to any candidate running for president. So we have to be committed to overturning a social system that's based on oppression and exploitation. Wall Street is a part of it, but so is Obama, so is the mayor right here, so are those borders that separate the Mexican people from their land that was stolen from them, so are those reservations that keep, those concentration camps that they call reservations. Where people are being oppressed. So are those armies that are attacking people in Iraq and Afghanistan and Palestine and that are threatening the people in Korea and Iran. You see this nonsense that Obama is talking about? He's created his weapons of mass destruction for Iran right now. Those are Wall Street wars, Wall Street movements, and we have to be opposed to it, and we have to be opposed to the system that gave birth to it. Because as I said, the wall that we are talking about, that Wall Street is known for, was built by slaves. And it was built in order to protect the people who were benefiting from stealing this land from the Indian people from whom the land was stolen. So we got to be more than just saying Occupy Wall Street. We say Occupy Wall Street, not Iraq. Occupy Wall Street, not Afghanistan. Occupy Wall Street, not Puerto Rico. Occupy Wall Street, not the reservations. Occupy Wall Street and not the black communities here. Occupy Wall Street and not the barrios. That has to be our stance. That's the stance that we have to take. So I just wanted to thank you for being here and being on the point and making this struggle. Because in the final analysis, people around the world are not struggling against racism, which is the ideas in anybody's head. People want power over their own lives.
That's right.
The one thing that Henry Kissinger said that was true is that power is an aphrodisiac. And people who don't like you today can learn to love you tomorrow if you got power. You understand? So the working people, African people, the Mexican people, the people whose lands and future have been stolen by Wall Street, and with the accompaniment that's being accepted and united with by the broad mass of people in this country. Slavery was a popular thing. The killing the Indians was a popular thing. Nobody talks about the fact that we're living on land now, that the indigenous people are in concentration camps. Nobody talks about that. That's not being spoken of. If you don't have a Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street movement that can address that, then it can't address the fundamental questions that's impacting on people.
That's right.
So I thank you. I thank you for being in the because you are the vanguard. This is Panther country. This is Panther country. And I think we have to say that. The movement was initiated, we have a situation where Oakland, African people, during the so-called World War II, the Second Imperialist War, built a ship a day for Kaiser. Brought here, lured here, built a ship a day for Kaiser. And then the ruling elite here brought cops, brought people from Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, thugs, white thugs, to function in the police department. That was Wall Street ships. Those were Wall Street cops that they brought from Alabama and Mississippi and places like that to control the masses of people here. And so we have a proud history of resisting Wall Street for longer than before Wall Street was created. And we have a proud history of always having resisted Wall Street. So we welcome everybody else now who finally discovered that there's a problem with Wall Street. We welcome you. If this is not a movement that's designed to try to cover up for Wall Street, if this is not a movement that's going to make some kind of distinction between a Wall Street Negro president and a Wall Street Texas white president. If it's a Wall Street president, it's a damn Wall Street president, whether it's black or white, whether it's in America or whether it's in any place else in the world. So I just want to congratulate you, for being here. And you just have to be on top of that, because you have to have the ability not just to struggle with some amorphous kind of victory, but you got to say victory to the oppressed, victory to the people in Iraq against Wall Street, victory to the Palestinians against Wall Street, victory to the African community here against Wall Street. That's the kind of stance that we have to take. We're on the side of the oppressed. There's no neutral stuff going on here, and anybody who tries to talk neutral stuff to us is working for Wall Street, whether they say it or not.
Basically, we want to separate us with their own hidden agenda. How do we focus on our mission of this revolution, making it successful, and we're all one people, but at the same time, there are certain people who have bullshit agendas.
I think what's going to have to be done is you're going to have to define your mission. You're going to have to clearly define your mission, one. And that mission, while it's broad and general, is going to have to take into account the fact that there are people who are oppressed in different and distinct kinds of ways, and that we require different and distinct kinds of solutions. But we can do that collectively. We can sit down, come up and define what our mission is, and make allowances for the fact that the mission has to include the interests of the people in these concentration camps that they call reservations, or the concentration camps, or the concentration camps that they call housing projects. We're going to have to be able to define our mission, and then that will allow us to operate, with a clear focus in dealing with anybody else, whatever their agenda is. If the agenda goes against the mission that we define, then it's against the real struggle against Wall Street. Exactly what I'm speaking to. Because the fact is that these are not things that simply spring into the people's brains. It's a structure. You have a system that's based on a particular kind of interest. And that system is the one that organizes not only your school systems and everything else, but your TV shows, everything that you see almost is coming from this system. So you talk about, I don't think there's a natural instinct in people to try to get involved in a dog-eat-dog system, a dog-eat-dog situation, but if you got a dog-eat-dog system, the only way you can function and move forward in this system is dog-eat-dog, and people will do that, not because of something inherent. That's why the damn system itself got to go. The system has to go. And so when you talk about we get rid of the middleman and everybody else, middle-level managers, when you get rid of the damn system. So we can have a system of participation. So we can end a system of bosses and workers and slave masters. That has to go. So that the people who produce all this wealth that finds themselves in Safeway stores, starving themselves around the world, can have access to their own resources. We have to destroy the system. And that's what we're going to have to target. That's why politicians are who, they see this kind of movement, this popular movement, and they want to believe that it is unled, so they can take advantage of it. That's why you have to define your mission yourself. And anybody who comes up against that mission is working for imperialism, whether it looks like Obama or whether it looks like George W. Bush. That's why it's a critical question.
That's the challenge, right?
We have to have confidence in the masses of the people. That's the thing that's going to be critically important for us to do. So, because the imperialists teach us to be pessimistic, to teach us not to have confidence in each other. But we do have to build programs that actually represent the various interests, the real interests. Because some people think that they have an interest in preserving imperialism. That's why the American population is so willing, despite everything else that's happened. They're paid for police. Who are they protecting from the police? They're protecting the police from me and you. And I'm talking about people who are out here now are willing to keep the police. I heard in Philadelphia, the Occupy Wall Street people were talking about how we want the police to get what's coming to them. If they got what's coming to them, that's another story. But they want the police to, make sure the police keep their money and resources. People are starving, and when you have people starving, and you don't have any intent for economic development for these oppressed communities, then public policy of police occupation is an absolute necessity. So you have public policy. Every candidate who runs for office in this country runs for more police, death penalty, more prisons, etc., because it's public policy. That public policy has to be overturned. And we have to do that. We have to create a public policy of economic development for the oppressed, not more oppression. Because if people can't eat, if the system is structured in such a fashion that people cannot eat in a normal system, here you have a capitalist system, which is a foul system born of slavery and genocide. It has no redeeming qualities at all. I'm not talking to some, it has no redeeming qualities. It couldn't be here. It couldn't be here without slavery and genocide. Here you have a capitalist system that would deny Africans, Mexicans, and other people a right to participate, to work in a legitimate capitalist system, and then would impose on us an illegal capitalist system, an illegal capitalist economy, like drugs. Drugs. How the hell do drugs from someplace in South America find its way, in the housing projects in Oakland, California? It doesn't make any sense at all. And here you have the police department and military forces armed with the most sophisticated kinds of intelligence. They can't find shiploads of drugs, but they can find a pack of rock, in somebody's pocket. It's because the White House is the rock house, and Uncle Sam is the oyster man.
My question is, it's kind of like a statement as well, though, is, you know what I'm saying? A lady told me yesterday, she said, nothing changes but change itself. And I think the only problem is that people tend to fear what they don't understand. You understand me? And I say that to say this, that in order for us to progress, we have to put down the fear of change. Because that's the only way we're going to get moved forward.
I agree. And it's the oppressed who love change. And the oppressor, or people who identify with the oppressor, who hate change. That's why you see that during this era now, you see more discussion, more talk about apocalyptic, the end of time, you're damn right, it's the end of time. It's the end of time. It's the end of time for the imperialists. But the oppressed people around the world are cheering as they see American empire trembling. They're cheering.
My name is Charles DeBar. I'm with Labor Black and Brown. And as the name suggests, if you think about it, that's America's power and Achilles heel. We look at the oppression of black and brown people not in terms of who's most oppressed, but the quality of that oppression and how it's tied to what makes this country run, the production system of capitalism. And it so happens that black people and brown workers occupy strategic sections of the American capitalist economy. Okay, that's the Achilles heel. So what we say about police brutality is that what needs to happen, like October 23rd when Longshore shut down the courts for Oscar Grant, we're saying we need political strikes of that nature and a more magnitude in answer to police killings. In conjunction with that, what has to have happen is to organize worker, black and brown community defense guards to actually stop the police from killing us. Because it's a practical question. How do we stop the police from killing us? It's a life and death question in the black community because they keep killing us and there's nothing stopping it. So what we're saying is that the question of defense guards is not an easy one because we need people with military technique, etc., but it's a political and a military question that has to be addressed. Okay. So yes, the meeting yesterday was dysfunctional for this reason. We're talking about police brutality. The People of Color was dysfunctional in terms of the discussion on police brutality because we're not talking about advances and developments. The Black Panther Party was a development out of the Diggers for Defense, not organizationally, but they took the self-defense tactic to another level. They made many errors, but they hit on something key. Black self-defense hits on the question of the American Revolution. Okay? Black self-defense is the question of black survival. So, what I'm suggesting is what happened yesterday is that if we want to have a discussion about stopping police brutality, we have to go back to pioneering efforts and examine that, and then what they were doing that was right or the good idea, those are things we want to advance and develop. So any discussion about tactics and strategy about police brutality has to deal with what we did in the past that either worked or didn't work.
Right, very good.
Lastly, is that I want to be down this labor rally, which is I've been terming the Democratic Party using the labor bureaucracy, the misleadership, gathering the membership as a Trojan horse battering ram to bring the Democratic Party here. So the Democratic Party here is not going to be speaking.
Brother Charles, what exactly is your question?
That they will be speaking through the eyes and ears of the mouth of the labor bureaucracy. It's a political struggle to break the chains and shackles they have on their working class. These labor bureaucrats at the IW hang out by themselves April 4th when they should have been striking. So any of these big people are going to talk about here, they're going to be making militant speeches, but what the fuck were they doing to help the longshoremen? You see what I'm saying? It's put up time. These guys have been selling out their workers. So I'd like to see if they're on the podium, we have an exchange and call them to question on some of their questionable history.
Very good. Very good.
We're going to take one or two more if the chairman has the time, and then return this to the people of color, for the People of Color Caucus, and handle some of the business that we need to handle before we break.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Muslim and from Afghanistan, and yesterday we brought about 40 Muslims from our community here. Imam Zaid came. I was saying I'm Muslim, alhamdulillah, and we brought about 40 people from the Muslim community here yesterday, including sisters in hijab, brothers with beards, and we came here in solidarity, but the kind of thing that happened, I'm not sure what the solution is. I'm asking for your wisdom. We weren't aware of what kind of march had been planned, and while Imam Zaid was talking, we're constantly being yelled at to join the march, and we did, and it was one of those marches where basically they put us out for the dogs to attack us. Okay, right now we're one of the most at-risk communities. We understand your struggle because it happened to you at COINTELPRO, and now it's happening in our community with massive FBI repression going on. We're dealing with that, and these people, these white anarchists, I'm so fucking pissed, excuse my language.
That's all right, I stay fucking pissed with them too.
They didn't give us any warning, you know, and half of our community are immigrants, most of them are people of color. It was a face-off with the police. We're not against their message and their tactics, but we're very upset at the way we were dragged into something without any prior warning or saying, you know, this is the kind of march you could get arrested. And F the police while the sisters are there in hijab, the children are there. What is the solution? I've been trying to address with them, and I've been getting like this wall of like, oh, well, people, Imam Zaid said it was a divine presence. Imam Zaid was not saying that about your march. You know, like you just like totally put us out there. There was cops with shotguns out there, you know, like we can't afford that. We don't have the privilege of taking a face-off with the police right now. So please, advice is how to proceed with this.
And that's really important, you know, it's a really important question on a couple of levels. One, the pretense of no organization is a problem. It is a pretense of no organization, non-organization is a problem. It's a real problem because that allows any kind of force to come into the provocateurs, police agents, and anybody to create a situation that can lead to people getting injured and turn everybody off against what it is that you stand for. I think that's again one of the reasons why there are going to have to be some rules. I mean, and I think you're going to have to again create the mission. And I think that mission should include the statement about the oppression, the horrible oppression against Muslims and Arabs, you know, like in this country now. I mean, actual damn near concentration camp situations, you know, and happening even under Obama. And I keep raising the issue of Obama because many white liberals think that they have done their part because they voted for this entity, you know. and I think that we have to have rules in this entity here because this body, the people of color, because this is where the violence is going to come down from the state. We understand state power because somebody spoke before. This brother here talking about how the police are killing us in the community. We understand the relationship that we have to the state. You don't see it out here now, but if this were an all-African camp out that we tried now, you'd see what the state is. You're right. So we're going to have rules. This group is going to have rules in terms of conduct of people, because if it brings down violence and repression of people, it's not some middle class kid who come in from the suburbs who don't have to worry about what the hell is going to happen as a consequence of the move. We got all these people who, especially in California, many of whom are undocumented as they characterize it, etc., who need to be able to fight in their own interest. But if we're going to victimize them, put them in situations where trying to struggle means that they're going to be targeted and wiped out, that is absolutely unthinkable. We have to, this group, in my view, the people of color have to create, this is what the stand is going to have to be around how we conduct ourselves in marches and anything else, so that this body, Occupy Wall Street, is going to have to recognize that we've been fighting against Wall Street for a long time. We know how it works, and we don't want to see our folk victimized by anarchist activities that will lead police repression. So I think that's going to be critically significant. We're going to have to agree to that. In my view, this is my view. And I just want to say, because people like to pretend there's no leadership, but there is some leadership. There is some classes at work here, some class forces at work here, and we have to say that this is what is necessary, and look out for the interests of the people who actually represent the foundation for the continuing existence of imperialism that's being shaken now because of struggles that's happening in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. Anyway. That's my intervention on that.
I wanted to respond to that too, just directly to you. That's actually how Onyx was born, was because they same tactics played out around the Oscar Grant movement. And so there's a piece of responsibility that, we can put on them, but as folks of color, we got to start putting some responsibility on us. And when they start to tell us to move, they got feet in the ground. You want to move, you want to go get at them, you go get at them. Because until we are fortified in a way where we can do that, we need to not move. And also, and be in position where we feel empowered amongst ourselves. To say no.
That's right.
Good point.
That's why the POC dialogue is so important. We need to have a meeting. I mean, I have limited time today. All of us do.
So there were 2 more questions, and then we're going to get on to the People of Color Caucus.
I think this is the characterization of the way that our march was organized is a little bit unfair and highly inaccurate. First of all, because it wasn't an anarchist march, it wasn't organized predominantly by anarchists. It was organized by a lot of people of color, some of whom were anarchists, and a lot of the anarchists who were people of color. I'm a Muslim and a black man from Oakland, and didn't help organize that march, but participated in that, and talked to Imam Zaid personally about everything that was going to happen, and didn't expect them to go on the march. But the Muslims went on the march anyway, which I thought was great. But no one won. I mean, I told them there was I talked personally to Imam Zaid and to other people and handed out flyers saying what the march was going to be about, telling people to stay tight together. No one got arrested. There was no violence. It wasn't organized by anarchists. And this whole
Are you part of Bay of Rage? Because Bay of Rage made the flyers. Are you part of Bay of Rage? I can't even figure out who Bay of Rage is.
Bay of Rage is a website. And it's a series of people who read that website, and when they call for something to happen, you can put it up on the website and people hear about it.
Brother and sister, I'm sorry, brother and sister, I want you to say your piece, and I think we need to have this dialogue. I do think we need to have this dialogue after we have dispersed folks that aren't of color. I feel like this is a caucus issue. Are you guys okay with that? That this be one of the issues that we deal with in 5 minutes?
Because I'm speaking to that community and I have text messages of how people were upset.
I know.
I think express it, but I think this is a people of color issue.
Part of the people that invited him on stage.
So I'm gonna take this one last question. That's it? Okay. So I'd like to thank the chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to tomorrow.
Spit back, my nigga. Don't keep a black eye on Jane, cause yours might be the next life that 5 take. Check catches in the hood, kidnapping niggas, bitch bapping niggas. Check back, my nigga. Don't get it straight. Talking is all we demonstrate. Don't just get on top of your shit, levitate. This new world order don't got no receipt. State prop really means stolen property.